Hi, you are watching Voice of Canada and this is Sana Haroon. As of today, the entirety of Quebec, including Montreal and Laval, has officially entered the lowest alert level of the province's color-coded system, which allows to more relaxed restrictions on social gatherings and group sports. People who are fully vaccinated, receive 2 doses, no longer need to wear a mask or keep a distance of 2 meters during gatherings inside private residences. While the pandemic is not quite over yet, as Canada's health agency is warning of a possible spike in cases come fall if the Delta variant takes hold, Quebecers are getting some respite this summer after a challenging few months. A maximum of 10 people from different households or all the occupants from 3 different households are allowed to gather inside private residences. Physical distancing and wearing masks is recommended for people who have not received 2 doses of a COVID-19 vaccine. For backyards and balconies, a maximum of 20 people from different households are permitted to gather. Inside both restaurants and bars, a maximum of 10 people or 3 private residences can share the same table. Up to 20 people can dine together at a table on an outdoor terrace or patio. Health restrictions still remain in place at bars, including a ban on singing and dancing. A distance of 2 meters between tables must also be kept, and clients must remain seated at their tables. Bars must also still limit themselves to 50% of the maximum capacity provided for in their liquor license. Wedding ceremonies and funerals can now accommodate 250 people, all of whom must remain seated during the event and keep a distance of at least 2 meters from others, unless they are from the same household. Auditoriums and indoor stadiums with assigned seating are allowed to present shows and sporting events before an audience of up to 3,500 people. Yes, that includes the Bell Centers for Stanley Cup Final Series. The Catholic Church says it will release records, but those searching for the truth have heard such promises before.
From the former residential school she attended in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, all the way to Ottawa. She started her walk of sorrow after hearing the remains of an estimated 215 children were detected at the Kamloops residential school. But her message became even more urgent this week with news of the preliminary discovery of 751 unmarked graves at the site of the Maryville School on the Cowessess First Nation. Soon after the announcement yesterday, others expressed their pain and anger in different ways. This cathedral was vandalized. One Catholic order says it will share all historical documents in its possession. The Missionary Oblates of Mary Immaculate operated 48 schools, including Kamloops and Cowessess. Though they've made similar commitments in the past, representatives are meeting with the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation next week.
Emotions are raw in Saskatchewan following the discovery of hundreds of unmarked graves at the former Maryville Indian Residential School.
On the doors of St. Paul Co-Cathedral in downtown Saskatoon, the rage is clear. "We were children," the graffiti reads in blood red paint. Vandalism that took place Thursday on the same day the Cowessess First Nation announced the discovery of as many as 751 people in unmarked graves outside the site of the former Maryville Indian Residential School.
There's a lot of layers to this, and if I might say, this is a long-term process. And anger is legitimate, anger, and it needs to be heard, and you can't force someone through their anger and all that is with it.
I was taken from my family when I was 3 years old.
Gracia Perkins spent 6 years. As punishment, she says she was often locked in a dark closet alone.
It was terrifying to be locked in that dark broom closet.
How old were you?
For years, she suspected children were buried on the site. Her own cousin was killed in an accident at the school. Discovering the graves, she says, is important for everyone.
Very important. Because I remember looking at those swings in the summertime, in the evening, And it was just calm out, and those swings would always be swinging, just like little kids were playing on.
The missionary of Oblates of Mary Immaculate ran dozens of residential schools, including the ones on Cowessess First Nation and in Kamloops. It has still not disclosed all of its historical documents. In a statement, it says it has worked to make our historical documents available, but progress has been complicated by issues of provincial and national privacy laws.
Every single document has to be accessible in order to properly identify children, know where they went, because not all graves are going to be known.
Leaving communities to grieve with each new discovery.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says Canadians shouldn't be shocked by the recent discoveries of unmarked graves at former residential schools.
It is not exactly news for Indigenous peoples.
While the discovery of more graves on the site of a former residential school is devastating, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says it shouldn't shock people because it was clearly laid out in the final report of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission 10 years ago. In 2009, the Harper government denied funding to find graves. More than a decade later, after the discovery in Kamloops, BC, the Liberals said $27 million would be available immediately for that purpose.
Indigenous communities across this country have my commitment that they will get the resources necessary to recover and document as much as possible these kids in these graves.
Unmarked graves account for 5 of the 94 calls to action from the Commission. Some Indigenous leaders feel the lack of progress on all calls to action since the Liberals have been in power is troubling.
Romeo Saganish had it right when he said that the Liberal government doesn't care a damn about Indigenous people and doesn't know anything of substance about what it is that we need.
But that includes an apology from the Pope and more than just an acknowledgement from the Catholic Church, which ran many of the residential schools in Canada.
I think they should be compelled and brought to court even for their role in what happened to our loved ones.
The president of the Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops says the Church is cooperating with supplying documents and in organizing a meeting in Rome between the Pope and Canadian Indigenous leaders.
3 days.
British Columbians are scrambling to find relief as a dangerous heat wave continues to slam the province. The heat dome across the region emerged, trapping air that is hot, and forecasts are calling for temperatures that can reach as high as 45 degrees.
An unusually strong ridge of high pressure bubbled up over the province on Friday, creating a heat dome. And that dome is trapping air that is hot and oppressive. This is unusual weather for this part of Canada, and it's being made worse by the fact that 60% of BC residents don't have air conditioning at home. Right now, health officials say the risk of extreme heat exposure is higher than COVID-19.
And rows of crop, as far as you can see, may now be essentially useless.
Look, these leaves, these are already burned, these leaves.
These men, some raspberry farmers for 40 years, have never seen so much damage in such a short time.
And this is a natural disaster affecting after the COVID pandemic. So we would like to urge to the Minister of Agriculture to step in, as well as to the federal government officials to step in.
A call for government help because the excruciating sun and heat over the last 48 hours is cooking and rotting fresh raspberries.
What we're seeing with this heat wave is the raspberry crop is literally being baked. It's being baked and cooked on the vine, and it will have little value, if any, by the time this heat wave is done.
The sunburnt fruits cannot be sold, meaning hundreds, if not thousands of acres of crops are being wasted as temperatures in the area break records.
It should be changing from green to red, but it is changing from green to white, as you can see.
Already moth caterpillars, once known as gypsy moth caterpillars, have invaded forests and parks in Ontario and some parts of Quebec, and climate change in turning them into a bigger problem.
Seeing a caterpillar may be exciting for young children, but this year it's a sign of an unwanted invasion. People across Ontario and parts of Quebec have been scrambling to protect their trees from an outbreak of the LDD moth, short for Lymantria disper disper. Commonly known as the gypsy moth, that term is now considered pejorative. Joel Harrison, a Toronto Forest Health Inspector, has been watching the caterpillar spread. Stress the caterpillars put on trees as they eat their leaves makes them more vulnerable to drought conditions, other pests, and more. The worry for forestry experts is that with climate change, the outbreaks of this caterpillar will last longer and make it harder for trees to recover. Usually, most of the caterpillars die from a virus or fungus that ends their outbreaks. But Harrison says drier and warmer springs caused by climate change can prevent that virus from forming. He cautions that we won't be able to get rid of the LDD moths.
In Saskatchewan, the Caucasus First Nation held a vigil Saturday as the community continues to grieve after the discovery of hundreds of Indigenous residential school children believed to be buried in unmarked graves.
They came together in mourning and prayer. The people of the Caucasus First Nation hosting a gravesite vigil Saturday, open to anyone who wanted to come and honor those found in as many as 751 unmarked graves near the former site of the Maryvale Residential School. The unmarked graves now identified by not only a flag but a small solar light. Not everyone found buried here went to the residential school, but some did. Finding these children at last has come as a relief to some. 7:51, mourners marked a moment of silence before residential school survivors shared stories of a past filled with pain. It has been an emotionally difficult few days for many families here, but the work is not done yet. To do that, Caucasus First Nation is hoping to obtain historical documents from the Catholic Church. Across the country, Catholic and other Christian churches are facing mounting community anger over their role in the operation of residential schools. In BC, a fifth church, the St. Paul's Anglican Church on the Gitwangak First Nation, was set ablaze. This time the flames were extinguished before the building was lost.
Canadian veteran Lionel Desmond struggled with post-traumatic stress disorder after serving in Afghanistan. In 2017, he killed his family and then himself.
Lionel Desmond was known as a cheerful family man. He descended into paranoia after coming home from a tour in Afghanistan in 2007. Devastated by PTSD, Desmond shot and killed his wife, Shayna, their 10-year-old daughter, and his mother before killing himself. His case manager told the Fatality Inquiry investigating the tragedy she did her best. It took Veterans Affairs Canada 6 months to appoint a case manager, even though Desmond's disorder was already obvious. A delay Marie-Paul Doucette blames on a lack of resources and budget cuts imposed by the former Conservative government. Other veterans with PTSD say it's bad enough they're bounced from the military medical system to the private system, where doctors can be hard to find. They say losing precious months without a case manager is inexcusable.
When you're dealing with PTSD,
a lack of sharing medical records between the military and provinces is another. Sister-in-law testified he complained about being a victim of anti-black racism before he left the Canadian Forces. The inquiry is examining Desmond's access to mental health and domestic violence services, the training of the professionals he encountered, and whether he should have been able to buy a rifle. The hearings are scheduled to end this fall.
The Montreal Canadiens are getting ready for Monday's face-off against the Tampa Bay Lightning for Game 1 of the 2021 Stanley Cup Final.
The Montreal Canadiens were remarkably relaxed for a team that is about to play in the Stanley Cup Finals. Bringing home hockey's holy grail just got a bit tougher. Well, Armia was placed in COVID-19 protocol by the league, which doesn't mean he has the virus, but it does mean he won't be with the team for Game 1 in Tampa Bay. Adversity that has included pausing the season for a week when Armia and another player were in the same COVID-19 protocol, losing key players to injuries late in the season, and then losing their coach for the last round of the playoffs when he had COVID-19. That's despite the entire team and staff receiving their second doses of vaccine on June 9th. And as you'd expect, Habs fans aren't worried. That unwavering faith isn't a shock in a town where hockey is considered a religion and the franchise goalie is seen as a savior. And if you think the pressure of trying to be the first Canadian team to win the Stanley Cup since 1993 is weighing on the players, look no further than the Habs goalie himself.
Keep watching Voice of Canada. For further updates, visit our website voiceofcanada.tv.